Imagine a world where the air freezes in your lungs, the soil is toxic, and the sun acts like a nuclear reactor with the shielding removed. This isn't a sci-fi nightmare. This is the construction site for humanity's greatest gamble. By the year 2050, if everything goes according to plan, there will be a light in the dark, a city on Mars. It won't just be a research station, and it won't be a campsite. It will be humanity's second home, our first permanent foothold outside the gravity well of Earth. SpaceX calls this vision making life multi-planetary. It is a construction project that will fundamentally change what it means to be human. But looking at the glossy artistic renders of glass domes and green parks, it is easy to forget the brutality of the math involved. Ambition and big rockets get you to orbit, but they don't keep you alive when you are 140 million miles from the nearest hospital. The biggest thing that would set a Mars city apart from a moon base is the concept of the umbilical cord. If a seal breaks on the moon, or a life support system fails, you can emergency evacuate to Earth in 3 days. The logistics are tight, but Earth is right there, watching over you. Mars is a different beast entirely. We are talking about a planet where the communication delay alone is up to 20 minutes. You can't ask Houston for help. By the time they hear you scream, it's already over. And physically, you are looking at a minimum 6 to 8 month voyage, and that window only opens when the planets align every 26 months. This means the people of Mars cannot be dependent on the resources of Earth. Not for water, not for air, and eventually, not even for spare parts. The guiding philosophy of the city must be radical self-sufficiency. The goal is simple but terrifying. If the ships from Earth just stopped coming, whether due to war, economic collapse, or politics, the Mars colony shouldn't die out. It should continue to grow. To achieve that, we need about 1 million people living and working on the red planet. But before we send 1 million souls into a freezer that is drier than the Sahara Desert and colder than Antarctica, we need to prepare the ground, and we won't be doing it with human hands. First comes the vanguard, the machine wave. Long before the first boot print is pressed into the regolith, Mars will be inhabited by an army of robots. And it is definitely not a coincidence that while SpaceX is building the transport, a sister company is building the workforce. This is the role of Optimus. This fully autonomous, AI-powered humanoid is the key to the early years of colonization. Sending humans to do heavy labor in a radiation-soaked vacuum is a moral and logistical nightmare. Humans are fragile. We need sleep, we need oxygen, and we panic. Robots do not. SpaceX's roadmap suggests that as early as the late 2020s, uncrewed starships will land, deploying these bots to secure the beachhead. Their mission is the survival of the future fleet. They need to locate resources, flatten landing pads, and verify that the environment is actually survivable. And let's be real, some of these early ships are going to crash. SpaceX's development philosophy has always been test, fly, fail, fix. It's better to smash a $10 million robot into a crater than a crew of astronauts. But once the landing sequence is perfected, the real work begins. Assuming we can land safely, location becomes everything. SpaceX has identified the Arcadia Planitia region as a prime candidate for settlement. It is just northeast of the Olympus Mons volcano. It's flat, it's low elevation, which helps with aerodynamic braking during landing. And crucially, it is believed to be sitting on top of massive glaciers of water ice, protected by a thin layer of dirt. Water is the gold standard of the solar system. You obviously need it to drink, but on Mars, water is also your air and your ride home. Through electrolysis, our robot scouts will need to split that water ice into hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen goes into the life support tanks for the humans arriving later. The hydrogen, that is for the rockets. But here's the brutal truth that SpaceX doesn't put on the posters. The first ships aren't just transport. They are effectively coffins if we don't solve one specific chemistry problem. You can't bring enough fuel from Earth to fly a Starship back. It is simply too heavy. You have to make it there. The Starship Raptor engines run on methalox, a mixture of methane and oxygen. We get the oxygen from the water, but we need carbon for the methane. Luckily, Mars has a thin atmosphere that is 95% carbon dioxide. By sucking CO2 out of the sky and mixing it with hydrogen from the ice, you get methane. This is known as the Sabatier reaction, and it is the beating heart of the Mars colony. Without this chemical plant running 24/7, Mars is a one-way trip. But these chemical plants and mining rigs are power-hungry beasts. When the first human fleet arrives, let's say in the early 2030s, they will need megawatts of power immediately. Mars has a day and night cycle almost identical to Earth's, which means half the time your solar panels are dead. This is where the synergy strikes again. Massive battery storage systems, likely modified Tesla megapacks, will need to be shipped by the dozen to bridge the night. But eventually, as the city grows, solar might not cut it. The planet is prone to massive global dust storms that can blot out the sun for weeks at a time. To survive that, the city will likely need to transition to fission reactors, nuclear power, to keep the lights on and the heaters running when the sun disappears. So, where do the people live? When the colonists finally step off the ramp, they can't just pitch a tent. At first, the Starship itself is the house, but living in a steel tube isn't a long-term psychological win, nor is it perfectly safe. We need volume and we need shielding. But we can't just build glass domes immediately. Glass is heavy to transport and offers zero protection against cosmic radiation. The immediate solution is going underground or building shielded structures. Using modified tunneling tech, likely from the Boring Company, we can dig networks of pressurized tunnels. Or we use the ice itself. NASA has explored ice home concepts, where water is pumped into the walls of the habitat. Water is an incredible radiation shield. It lets the light in but keeps the cancer-causing cosmic rays out. Then there is the most uncomfortable problem: biology. You can't just plant potatoes in Martian dirt. The soil is toxic, filled with perchlorates, salts that are terrible for human thyroids. We have to wash the soil chemically before anything can grow, and we need to be ruthless with waste. On Earth, waste is something you throw away. On Mars, there is no away, but to build the first true city, we might have to use the only resource we have in abundance: the colonists themselves, and I mean that literally. This leads to a concept called in-situ resource utilization. We might use sulfur found in the soil to make Marscrete, a concrete that binds without water. Or, as researchers at the University of Manchester suggested, we could use a binder made from human protein, specifically from blood, sweat, or urea. It sounds grim, but urea, found in urine, is a fantastic plasticizer for concrete. It makes the material stronger and more resistant to the thermal cycles of Mars. So, the early colonists will quite literally be putting a part of themselves into the foundation of this new world. Their waste fertilizes the crops. Their chemistry binds the walls. It is a closed loop of survival. If we can lock down those basic necessities of life, power, water, oxygen, shelter, and food, and if we can produce those things in a way that doesn't rely on a shipment from Earth, then we have passed the great filter. It is going to be dangerous. It is going to be cramped. And for the first generation, it might effectively be a one-way ticket. But the result is the preservation of the light of consciousness. Once that city reaches a critical mass, once it can build its own ships, train its own doctors, and grow its own food without a single supply run from our home world, humanity becomes immortal. We will no longer be a single point of failure species. We will be the Martians. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel out more than you know.